Now, God is described generally as having all power. We call him as Almighty because we have some force within us which we think to be a part of the big power. The power we see in us is the outcome of that big action which develops into power. The show. You can better understand it as take up the example of an electric dynamo. The machine is set up with magnets in a particular manner. Now, this dynamo has no power in itself, but when it revolves, it creates a sort of electric field and the power begins to gush out from the field. So, the magnets are arranged in a particular way, and there is no power as such. But when it moves, it creates an electric field and the power gushes out. The terminals that are fixed in the field at particular places pick up the power and the current begins to flow from the terminal. So you need to study the the dynamo. How does the dynamo work? Now, although the magnets of the dynamo are not connected with the terminals, nor do they touch them. So, ಏನು ಹೇಳ್ತಿದ್ದಾರೆ, the terminals that are fixed in the field at particular places pick up the power and the currents begin to flow from the terminals. Although the magnets of the dynamo are not in contact with the terminals, nor do they touch them. So there is no direct contact. It is just that there is the power which is flowing. So when the dynamo rotates, then the power starts gushing out. In the same way, invisible motions near the concentric center creates a sort of field of power which may be called as the central region. So now, what is the central region? It's a sort of power, field of power that is created around the center because of the movement in the center. So the center, like the dynamo, magnets in the dynamo is moving. Now when it moves, it creates a field around itself. So that is the field, and that is what is called as the central region. But there it has no action and is quite silent. It only begins to rush out from the central region through proper terminals in the form of different powers of nature. So the powers of nature start gushing out from the central region in specific places. So if you keep the terminals in different places, they'll not pick up the power. But if you keep in a particular place, then they'll pick up the power which is actually flowing out from the center and central region. So the center itself is like the dynamo magnet. The central region is the field around that dynamo, from where the revolving motion of the dynamo magnet creates a power which gushes out through the central region and it is picked up by the terminals which are placed in specific places. Not in all places, but in specific places. Does it make sense? So I think if you study the dynamo a bit more, you will probably, engineering students should have studied the dynamo, no? We don't study the dynamo too much. Maybe you people would have studied. Gone. Anyway, have you understood the idea of nothingness or zero? This is the greatest philosophy I am revealing. People may grasp it or not in the beginning, but in due course they will surely begin to realize its worth as such. Mysterious are the ways of God, as they say, because the mystery behind the scene is hidden from them. The naked form of God appears only to those who really go swimming in the waves and reach near about the center. I assure you that this is all my reading of nature or Anubhava in true sense. It is all due to the thorough practice of Raja Yoga and the blessings of my master that lie pouring upon me in every fiber of my being. Now, people may wonder when I say it is the focusing light coming from the center to the end of the central region, making something like a ring where the central region ends. Although the light is not the exact translation of the thing, light literally is a far more heavier thing than this actually is and is left far behind. But it has been expressed so merely for the sake of understanding. Whatever we find in the central region is the real thing in pure and naked form. There is no amalgamation whatsoever in it. In other words, there is the light which is coming from the center. So, if for example, ಒಂದು ಲೈಟ್ ಬಿಟ್ರೆ ಕೆಲವು ಸತಿ ಲೈಟ್ ಬಂದು there is a ring around it ನೋಡಿದ್ಯಾ? Circle around the light. Now remember, Babuji is trying to explain things based on what was in technology at that time in the 1940s. That's what he's using as analogy, not now. The 40s. So generally, when there is a light, there is a ring around it. So Babuji is saying that that ring around it, the thing, is the periphery of the central region. And the central region is the light itself. Not the light that we are used to, but something very subtle. So he's trying to give two descriptions of the central region. The one is that it is the power flowing out from the center. What do you say? The sort of field of power around the center. That is the central region. That's one description. And second description is that the central region is full of light. At the periphery of that light is the periphery of the central region, where you find like a ring-like structure. Focusing light coming from the center and the health.
I can't relate to the example.
Allah, whatever the thing was there, I told you that's why. Focusing light during Babuji's time. So just give in the Google focusing light in 1940s. I think that will probably give you an idea what he's talking about. ಸಿ ಆವಾಗಿನ ಕಾಲದಲ್ಲಿ ಫೋಟೋ ಎಲ್ಲ ಹೆಂಗಿತ್ತು, ಫೋಟೋಗ್ರಫಿ ತೆಗಿಯೋರಲ್ಲ ಅದೆಲ್ಲ ಹೆಂಗಿತ್ತು,
Black and white.
ವೇ ಡಿಫರೆಂಟ್ ಫ್ರಮ್ ವಾಟ್ ವಿ ಡೂ ನೋ.
Hmm.
Now if somebody were to describe the photography in that way, we will not be able to relate to it. So essentially what he's saying is that they were using some focusing light at that time. Around the focusing light there is a ring. Now when we were young we have seen that ring. Because in the 30 or 40 years back, when the focusing light was being used, there used to be a ring. Anyway, I think you will just find out focusing light, the pictures of focusing light. Just type it of images or pictures of focusing light. ಏನೋ ಬಂತ, ಬಂತಲ್ಲ ಏನೋ ತೋರಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ನಾನು. ಏ ಅದು ನೀನು ಮೇಲ್ಗಡೆಯಿಂದ ಬರ್ತಿದೆ, ಇದು
ಇದು
ಫೋಕಸಿಂಗ್ ಲೈಟ್ ಇದು.
ಕ್ಯಾಮ್ರಾ
ಇಷ್ಟೊಂದು ಮೇಲ್ಗಡೆಯಿಂದ ಕೆಳಗಡೆವರೆಗೂ
ಮೂವಿಲಲ್ಲಿ ಹಾಕ್ತಾರಲ್ಲ.
ಹಾ, ಮೂವಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಹಾಕ್ತಾರಲ್ವಾ, ಅದ್ರ ಸುತ್ತ ಒಂದು ಇದು ಬರುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ, ಅದು ಫೋಕಸಿಂಗ್ ಲೈಟ್ ಸರಿ. ಬಟ್ ಆ ಲೈಟ್ ಬಿದ್ದಾಗ ಒಂದು ರಿಂಗ್ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ವೆನ್ ಇಟ್ ಫಾಲ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲ ಆನ್ ಸಮಥಿಂಗ್, ದೇರ್ ಇಸ್ ಎ ರಿಂಗ್ ವೇರ್ ದ ಲೈಟ್ ಫಾಲ್ಸ್. That is what he is talking about. Not
So when
exactly
the light
focusing light
falls,
itself. When the light falls, so focusing light is the center. From the center, the light comes out. And at the end of that light, there is the ring-like structure. That ring is the periphery of the central region. That is what he is talking about.
so it's the focus lights uh, ending, like wherever it points to on the wall or something, there a ring is formed.
See, ಹೆಂಗಿದೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ arrangement, center in the light falls on the soul, the true self. The true self reflects that light onto the mind. The mind reflects that light onto the body. And from the body, it actually reflects out. That's the glow of the body. Original light, the only source of light is the true self, the center, supreme soul, the supreme self. That's the only light which is there. From there, it falls on the true self. The true self reflects that light out. It reflects that particular light, and that becomes the consciousness. And the body and mind is placed on the consciousness. So you see the glow of the body and the mind because of the light of the consciousness which is present. But the light of the consciousness is coming from the soul or the true self, which itself is coming from the supreme soul. That's the arrangement. Does it make sense?
So it's similar to how the sun's brightness
Exactly.
is related
Sun's light
on
will come to the moon, moon's light will then fall onto the earth. Exactly, very similar. So the center's light falls on the individual, the true self. The true self light is now reflected as consciousness. That's like the moonlight. The moonlight is the consciousness. In that consciousness, we can see all the people around. Likewise, in that particular consciousness, you can see the body and the mind functioning. If the consciousness is withdrawn, then the body and the mind cannot function in the same way. They cannot function in this world. So if somebody becomes unconscious, they cannot function in the world. They are bedridden, that's all. There is no functioning, so to say. So functioning is enabled by the consciousness. So if somebody becomes unconscious, they cannot function. That's why what's the relationship between consciousness and awareness is consciousness is the light of the soul. The periphery of the light is the awareness. ಸೋಲ್ ಇಲ್ಲಿದೆ ಅಂತ ಇಟ್ಕೋ, ಇಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಲೈಟ್ ಬರ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ಇದು ಕಾನ್ಶಿಯಸ್ನೆಸ್, ಫೀಲ್ಡ್ ಆಫ್ ಕಾನ್ಶಿಯಸ್ನೆಸ್. At some place it ends, the periphery. That periphery is what is called as awareness. ಇದು ಅರ್ಥ ಆಯ್ತಾ?
So the diameter is the awareness.
Diameter.
Circle on center.
Circumference.
Sorry, circumference. Yeah.
ಏನಪ್ಪ ಇಂಜಿನಿಯರಿಂಗ್ ಮ್ಯಾಥ್ಸ್ ರಾಮ, ಡಯಾಮೀಟರ್.
Circumference ಹೇಳಕ್ ಹೋಗಿ diameter ಹೇಳಕ್.
ಆಯ್ತು. So circumference is the awareness. The center is where the light is coming from. The center's light is now reflected on the soul, the true self. The true self actually emits that field of light. That is the field of consciousness. The periphery of that field is the awareness. This is the arrangement. In other words, the true self gets the light from the supreme soul, from the center. Does it make sense? Same. It appears as if the moon itself is ejecting the light. If you look at the moon, it appears as if it's the moon which is actually ejecting light onto the earth. But actually, as a matter of fact, we know that moon cannot eject the light. Moon has no light of its own. All that it does is it reflects the light of the sun to the earth. That's all it does. So moon is only a reflector. It has no light of its own. Likewise, the true self is the reflector of the light which is coming from the supreme soul. ಇದ್ಯಾಕೆ ಇಷ್ಟೊಂದು ಇಂಜಿನಿಯರ್ಸ್ ಇಷ್ಟೊಂದು ಒದ್ದಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ? 2 ಲೈನ್ ಅರ್ಥ ಆಗ್ಬೇಕಿತ್ತು. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಸೆಂಟರ್ ಇದೆ, ಅದು ಲೈಟ್ ಸೋರ್ಸ್ ಎಂಥದ್ದು, ಫೋಕಸ್ ಲೈಟ್. ಅಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಲೈಟ್ ಬರ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ಆ ಲೈಟ್ ಎಲ್ಲೋ ಒಂದು ಕಡೆ ಬಂದು ಒಂದು ಪೆರಿಫರಿ ಫೀಲ್ಡ್ ಬರುತ್ತೆ, ಒಂದು ರಿಂಗ್ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ಅದು ಸೆಂಟರ್ ಫೀಲ್ಡ್, ಸೆಂಟ್ರಲ್ ರೀಜನ್ದು ಬೌಂಡ್ರಿ. ಆ ಬೌಂಡ್ರಿಯಿಂದ ಹೊರಗಡೆ ಪವರ್ಸ್ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ಪವರ್ಸ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಕಡೆ ಇರಲ್ಲ. ವೇರ್ ಇಟ್ ಫ್ಲೋಸ್ ಇನ್ ಸರ್ಟನ್ ಡೈರೆಕ್ಷನ್ಸ್, ಲೈಕ್ ದ power in the dynamo flows in certain directions. If you keep the terminals in that particular direction, in that particular place, then it picks up the power. If you keep the terminals in a different place, it cannot pick up the power. ಸರಿನಾ? ಸೊ ಇದೇನು ಫೋಕಸಿಂಗ್ ಲೈಟ್ ಏನಿದೆ ಎಂಡ್ ಆಯಿತು. ಈ ಸೆಂಟ್ರಲ್ ರೀಜನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಿದೆ, ದ ಟ್ರೂ ಸೆಲ್ಫ್ ಇದೆ. ಜ್ಞಾಪಕ ಇದೆಯಾ? ಪೈನ್ ಐಡೆಂಟಿಟಿ ಇದ್ದು ಗ್ರಾಸ್ ಐಡೆಂಟಿಟಿ ಆಯಿತು. ಟ್ರೂ ಸೆಲ್ಫ್ ಇದೆ. ಆ ಟ್ರೂ ಸೆಲ್ಫ್ ಈ ಪವರ್ ಅದ್ರ ಮೇಲೆ ಬಿತ್ತು. ಈ ಪವರ್ನ ಅದು ರಿಫ್ಲೆಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತು. ಅದು ರಿಫ್ಲೆಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಅದು ಕಾನ್ಷಿಯಸ್ನೆಸ್ ಆಯಿತು, ಫೀಲ್ಡ್ ಆಫ್ ಕಾನ್ಷಿಯಸ್ನೆಸ್. ಸರಿ. ಫೀಲ್ಡ್ ಆಫ್ ಕಾನ್ಷಿಯಸ್ನೆಸ್ ಈಸ್ ನಾಟ್ ದ ಲೈಟ್ ಕಮಿಂಗ್ ಫ್ರಮ್ ದ ಸೆಂಟರ್ ಡೈರೆಕ್ಟ್ಲಿ. ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ದ ರಿಫ್ಲೆಕ್ಟೆಡ್ ಲೈಟ್ ಕಮಿಂಗ್ ಫ್ರಮ್ ದ ಟ್ರೂ ಸೆಲ್ಫ್. ಫೀಲ್ಡ್ ಆಫ್ ಕಾನ್ಷಿಯಸ್ನೆಸ್ ಆಯಿತು. ಆ ಫೀಲ್ಡ್ ಆಫ್ ಕಾನ್ಷಿಯಸ್ನೆಸ್ ಎಲ್ಲೋ ಎಂಡ್ ಆಗಬೇಕಲ್ವಾ? ಅದು ಎಲ್ಲಿ ಎಂಡ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ? ದಟ್ ಪೆರಿಫೆರಿ ಈಸ್ ದ ಅವೇರ್ನೆಸ್. ಸರಿನಾ? ಕ್ಲಿಯರ್ ಆಯ್ತಾ? ಇನ್ನೂ ಗೋಪಾಲಕೃಷ್ಣನ್ಗೆ ಇನ್ನೂ ಕ್ಲಿಯರ್ ಆಗಿಲ್ಲ. ಅವನು ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಆ ಕಡೆ ನೋಡ್ತೇನೆ ಈ ಕಡೆ ನೋಡ್ತೇನೆ ಎಲ್ಲೋ ನೋಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾನೆ. ಕ್ಲಿಯರ್ ಆದಮೇಲೆ ಫೇಶಿಯಲ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ರೆಷನಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಫೀಲಿಂಗ್ ಆಫ್ ಸ್ಯಾಟಿಸ್ಫ್ಯಾಕ್ಷನ್ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ದಟ್ ಐ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಸಿ ಇನ್ ಗೋಪಾಲ್ ಕೃಷ್ಣಸ್ ಫೇಸ್.
It's multi-layered.
ಏನು ಬರ್ತಾ ಇದೆಯಾ, ನಿಧಾನಕ್ಕೆ ಬರ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ಏರಿಯಾ ಸರಿ ನಡಿ ಹೋಗೋಣ ಇವಾಗ. So whatever we find in the central region is the real thing in pure and naked form. There is no amalgamation whatsoever in it. Now, we enter this region, we have to cross what is called as the above as a ring. It is only the force of one's master which makes the way smooth into this region. ಅಂದರೆ ಸೆಂಟ್ರಲ್ ರೀಜನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಪೆರಿಫೆರಲ್ ರಿಂಗ್ ಇದೆ, ಸೆಂಟ್ರಲ್ ರೀಜನ್ ಸುತ್ತ. ಅದನ್ನ ದಾಟಬೇಕು ನಾವು. ಅದನ್ನ ದಾಟಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಮಾಸ್ಟರ್ಸ್ ಪವರ್ ಬೇಕು. ಪವರ್, ಇಟ್ಸ್ ಮಾಸ್ಟರ್ಸ್ ಪವರ್ ವಿಚ್ ಆಕ್ಚುಲಿ ಪುಷಸ್ ಯು ಓವರ್ ದಟ್ ಪರ್ಟಿಕ್ಯುಲರ್ ರಿಂಗ್. Where the powerful thing which I have called the light for mere understanding ends. It creates a force at the end which we have to cross, and this is only possible when a push from the mind region is given by his master, who is the only power capable of this task. ಸೊ ಮಾಸ್ಟರ್ ಆ ಕಡೆಯಿಂದ ಪುಷ್ ಕೊಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಪುಷ್ ಕೊಡ್ತು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಆ ರಿಂಗ್ನ ದಾಟಿ ನಾವು ಸೆಂಟ್ರಲ್ ರೀಜನ್ ಎಂಟರ್ ಆಗ್ತೀವಿ. ಸರಿನಾ? ನಾವು ದ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಮಾರ್ಕ್ ಸಿ ಇನ್ ದ ಡಯಾಗ್ರಾಮ್ಸ್, ಹಿಂದಿನ ಪೇಜಲ್ಲಿ ಡಯಾಗ್ರಾಮ್ ಇದೆ ನೋಡು. ದ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಮಾರ್ಕ್ ಸಿ ಈಸ್ ದ ಸೆಂಟರ್. Whether you call it as God or anything else for expression, this is the main point. This point is absolutely motionless and there is no energy, no power or anything of that sort. Just adjacent to it is the latent motion which generates power, which issues forth henceforth. The center only maintains the latent motion. So center has no power in itself, but it maintains the latent motion. And from the latent motion, all the power gush out. The color of this place can be expressed as faint reflection of colorlessness. It is throwing forth in the central region something in a shadowy form expressed above as light. The shadowy form of this region is due to it, and it is the swimming place for the liberated souls. So center the end kelsa illa, it just maintains the latent motion. Ashte adar kelsa. So there is no power, nothing there. No energy, no power or anything of that kind. So center is almost like motionless. No power, no energy, nothing. But it's just there. From there, it just maintains the latent motion. And it's the motion, the latent motion that generates the power, and that is the kind of issued forth. The color of the latent motion is a faint reflection of colorlessness. ಒಂದು ನಿಮಿಷ ಯಾರು ಬಂದು. The color of this place can be reflected as a faint reflection of colorlessness. So ಯಾವುದು latent motion, the color reflection of colorlessness. It is throwing forth in the central region something in that shadowing form expressed as light. So ಆ ರಿಫ್ಲೆಕ್ಷನ್, ಫೇಂಟ್ ರಿಫ್ಲೆಕ್ಷನ್ ಆಫ್ ಕಲರ್ಲೆಸ್ನೆಸ್ ಇದೆಯಲ್ಲ, ಅದರದ್ದು ಶಾಡೋ ಬಿದ್ದಂಗೆ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಎಲ್ಲಿ, ಸೆಂಟ್ರಲ್ ರೀಜನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ. That central region shadow of the latent motion is what is called as light in the central region. The shadowy form of this region is due to it, and it is the swimming place for the liberated souls. We can reach there even when having our bodies, and we can begin swimming like the liberated souls even in our lifetime. This is one of the marvelous inventions of my Lord Samarth Guru Mahatma Shri Ramchandraji Mahatma Ramchandraji of Fatehgarh, UP, who has made it accessible and practicable. As far as the vision of an inward eye goes, No such example has been found in the history of spiritual attainments. If we develop this stage, we establish ourselves there even before leaving our body, and the swimming continues after we leave the body, and we are now swimming in the utter nothingness, so to say. Andre, even while having the body, we can actually reach up very close to the center and start our swimming in the latent motion. That is what he's talking about. ಸ್ವಿಮ್ಮಿಂಗ್ ಮೊದಲು ಎಲ್ಲಿ ಶುರು ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಸೆಂಟ್ರಲ್ ರೀಜನಲ್ಲೇ ಸ್ವಿಮ್ಮಿಂಗ್ ಶುರು ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ನಾವು ಬೆಳಿಗ್ಗೆ ಓದ್ತಾ ಇದ್ವಲ್ಲ, ಸೆಂಟ್ರಲ್ ರೀಜನ್ ಸ್ವಿಮ್ಮಿಂಗ್ ಹೆಂಗಿರುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ, the swimming is not like floating. It's not swimming, not floating. The swimming is of not such nature that it does not create any waves of resistance. Very light swimming ಅಂತ ಓದಿದ್ವಿ, ಜ್ಞಾಪಕ ಇದೆಯಾ? I don't know which session we read that, but I was just reading about it. The central region ಅಲ್ಲಿ swimming ಶುರು ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. So we swim and then cross the 7 rings of splendor. After that we cross the shore and then we enter into the latent motion. When we enter into the latent motion, that is when we are in close alignment with the center. But the swimming continues across the entire central region. So ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಇಲ್ಲಿಂದ ವಾಪಸ್ ಹೋಗ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ರಿಂಗ್ ಇದೆ, ಸೆಂಟ್ರಲ್ ರೀಜನ್ ಸುತ್ತ ರಿಂಗ್ ಇದೆ. ಯು ಕ್ರಾಸ್ ದಟ್ ರಿಂಗ್. ಹೌ ಡು ಯು ಕ್ರಾಸ್ ದ ರಿಂಗ್? ಮಾಸ್ಟರ್ ಪುಷಸ್ ಯು. ಅದು ಪುಷ್ ಆಗಿದ ತಕ್ಷಣ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಸೆಂಟ್ರಲ್ ರೀಜನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಲ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಆಗ್ತೀವಿ. ಹಾಗಾದ್ರೆ ಸೆಂಟ್ರಲ್ ರೀಜನ್ ನಾವು ಲ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಆದಾಗ ಏನಿದೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಹತ್ರ? ವಿ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಅವೇರ್ನೆಸ್ ಅಂಡ್ ವಿ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಗ್ರಾಸ್ ಐಡೆಂಟಿಟಿ. ಇದು ಎರಡಿದೆ. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ವಿ ಕಂಟಿನ್ಯೂ ಟು ಸ್ವಿಮ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಕ್ರಾಸ್ ದ 7 rings of splendor. 7 rings of splendor ದಾಟಿದ ಮೇಲೆ ವಿ ಕ್ರಾಸ್ ದ ಕ್ಷೋಭ್. Once we cross the kshob, we enter into the latent motion. There we continue our swimming. During that swimming in the latent motion, we come in close alignment with the center and absorb the essence of the center. When we absorb the essence of the center, now all these things can happen not after we have shed the body, like previously people thought. Even while you are living here, this can happen there. We continue to swim just close to the center and absorb the essence of the center. Now, when we shed the body here, we go and merge with that entity which is there in the latent motion. In other words, even while being alive here, having a body here, we can swim in the central region, and in near the center, that is what can happen. This is one of the inventions of Lalaji Maharaj. Previously, people thought for that those kinds of journey to occur, you should have shed your body. Lalaji showed that even while you are living here with the body, you can still be swimming there. ಇದು ಅರ್ಥ ಆಯ್ತಾ? Now the latent motions generated power which rushed out and created something that can, for the sake of understanding, be expressed as eggs of fish in the span. So latent motion ಬರುತ್ತಲ್ವಾ, ಅದು ಕಂಟಿನ್ಯೂಸ್ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಇಟ್ಸ್ ಲೈಕ್ ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಎಕ್ಸ್ ತರ ಇದೆ. ಇಟ್ಸ್ ಲೈಕ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ ಶೇಪ್ಡ್ ಪವರ್, ಪ್ಯಾಕ್ಡ್ ಪವರ್ ಎಗ್ ಶೇಪ್ ದಲ್ಲಿ ಇದೆ. ಸೊ ಎಕ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಫಿಶ್ ಇನ್ ದ ಸ್ಪ್ಯಾನ್ ಅಂತ. ಸೊ ಎಕ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಫಿಶ್ ಹೆಂಗಿದೆ ಅಂತ ನೋಡ್ರಿ ಪಿಕ್ಚರ್. ಹೌ ಡಸ್ ದ ಎಕ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಫಿಶ್ ಲುಕ್ ಲೈಕ್? ಏನೋ ತುಂಬಾ ಬೆಳಕಿದೆಯಪ್ಪ. ಯಾವ್ದೊಂದು ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಬ್ಲ್ಯಾಕ್ ಅಂಡ್ ವೈಟ್ ಪಿಕ್ಚರ್ ತರ ಇದ್ರೆ ತೋರಿಸು. ದಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಟೂ ಮಚ್ ಕಲರ್, ಯೆಲ್ಲೋ ಕಲರ್ ಇದೆ ಅದು. ಅವನು ಅದೇ ತರ ತೋರಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾನೆ. ಹಾ, ಅದಿದೆಯಲ್ಲ, ಒಂದೊಂದು ಎಗ್ ಇದೆಯಲ್ಲ, ಈಚ್ ಎಗ್, ಆಯ್ತು ಗೊತ್ತಾಯ್ತು. ಈಚ್ ಎಗ್ ಇದೆಯಲ್ಲ, ವಾಟ್ ಈಸ್ ದಟ್ ಎಗ್? ದಟ್ ಎಗ್ ಈಸ್ ಕಾನ್ಸಂಟ್ರೇಟೆಡ್ ಫಾರ್ಮ್ ಆಫ್ ಪವರ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಎನರ್ಜಿ ದಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಕಮಿಂಗ್ ಔಟ್ ಫ್ರಮ್ ದ ಲೇಟೆಂಟ್ ಮೋಷನ್. Each egg represents one concentric form of concentrated power or energy. That is what each egg represents. Anyway, now, the latent motions generated power which rushed out and created something that can, for the sake of understand, be expressed as the eggs of fish in this pond. These egg-like things are full of power, concentrated essence of power and energy created by the invisible motions. Now, all these three, the center, the latent motion, and the so-called egg-like things, are so adjacent to one another that it is very difficult to distinguish them from each other separately. And all seem to be one or adjacent together as one. So ಈ ಮೂರು ಒಟ್ಟಿಗೆ ಇದೆ. ಸೊ ಸೆಂಟರ್ ಇದೆ, ಸೆಂಟರ್ ಪಕ್ಕದಲ್ಲಿ ಲೇಟೆಂಟ್ ಮೋಷನ್ ಇದೆ, ಅದ್ರ ಪಕ್ಕದಲ್ಲಿ ಎಗ್ ಲೈಕ್ ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್ಸ್ ಇದೆ. ದೇ ಆರ್ ಆಲ್ಮೋಸ್ಟ್ ಲೈಕ್ ಒನ್, ಅಕಿನ್ ಟು ಒನ್, all placed to one another, very closely to one another. Now the color of the place may be expressed as grayish, like that of dawn, or more appropriately only a faint reflection of that color. ಅಂದರೆ ಲೈಟ್ ಕಲರ್ ಅಂತ ಇಟ್ಕೋ, ಲೈಟ್ ಗ್ರೇಯಿಶ್ ಯಾವುದು ಆ ಎಗ್ ಲೈಕ್ ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್ ಇದೆಯಲ್ಲ ಆಗಿರತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಜಾಗ. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಮುಂಚಿನ ಲೇಟೆಂಟ್ ಮೋಷನ್ ಯಾವ ಕಲರ್ ಇತ್ತು? ಫೇಂಟ್ ರಿಫ್ಲೆಕ್ಷನ್ ಆಫ್ ಕಲರ್ಲೆಸ್ನೆಸ್. ಈಗ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಎಗ್ ಲೈಕ್ ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಗ್ರೇ ಕಲರ್ ಆರ್ ಡಾನ್ ಕಲರ್ ಆರ್ ರಿಫ್ಲೆಕ್ಷನ್ ಆಫ್ ದಟ್ ಡಾನ್ ಕಲರ್ or light dawn color, rather the spirit or the essence of this color of which dawn is the material manifestation. So dawn color is the material manifestation of that color. Of which color? The color of the place where the egg-like structures are found. ಅರ್ಥ ಆಗಲಿಲ್ವಾ? ಸೊ ಸೆಂಟರ್ ಇದೆ, ಸೆಂಟರ್ ಪವರ್ ಕೊಡ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಲೈಟ್ ತರ. ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ದೇರ್, ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಕ್ರಿಯೇಟೆಡ್ ದ ಫೀಲ್ಡ್ ಅರೌಂಡ್ ಇಟ್, ದಟ್ ಇಸ್ ದ ಸೆಂಟ್ರಲ್ ರೀಜನ್. ಸೆಂಟರ್ ಪಕ್ಕದಲ್ಲಿ ಲೇಟೆಂಟ್ ಮೋಷನ್ ಇದೆ, ಸೆಂಟರ್ ಇಸ್ ಸಪೋರ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ದ ಲೇಟೆಂಟ್ ಮೋಷನ್. ಈಗ ವೆನ್ ದ ಟೈಮ್ ಆಫ್ ಕ್ರಿಯೇಷನ್ ಕಮ್ಸ್, ಆಫ್ಟರ್ ದ ಕ್ಷೋಭ್ ಹ್ಯಾಪನ್ಸ್, ದ ಪವರ್ ಫ್ರಮ್ ದ ಲೇಟೆಂಟ್ ಮೋಷನ್ ಗಶಸ್ ಔಟ್. ಆ ಪವರ್ ಹೊರಗಡೆ ಬರಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಲೇಟೆಂಟ್ ಮೋಷನ್ ಇಂದ ಇಟ್ ಕಮ್ಸ್ ನಾಟ್ ಇನ್ ಎ ಕಂಟಿನ್ಯೂಸ್ ಸ್ಟ್ರೀಮ್ ಲೈಕ್ ಫ್ಯಾಷನ್. ವೆರಿ ಸಿಂಪಲ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಹೇಳೋದಾಯ್ತು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ, ನಿಂಗೆ ಫ್ಲವರ್ ಪಾಟ್ ಹಚ್ಚಿದೆಯಲ್ಲ, ಫ್ಲವರ್ ಪಾಟ್ ಹಚ್ಚಿದಾಗ ಒಂದೊಂದು ರಿಂಗ್ ತರ ಬರುತ್ತೆ, ಸ್ಪಾರ್ಕ್ ತರ ಬರುತ್ತೆ ನೋಡಿ. ಇಫ್ ಯು ಟೇಕ್ ಈಟ್ ಇಂಡಿವಿಜುವಲ್ ಸ್ಪಾರ್ಕ್, ದಟ್ ಈಟ್ ಇಂಡಿವಿಜುವಲ್ ಸ್ಪಾರ್ಕ್ ಈಸ್ ಲೈಕ್ ದ ಫಿಶ್ ಎಗ್ ಅಂತ ಇಟ್ಕೋ. Now that spark is nothing but a concentrated form of energy and power. That's what it is, that spark. Now each of that spark represents one cosmos, one Brahmanda. Each and every spark. Now if you look at it, if you look at it in the flower pot, the thing which comes in the center is very thick. That thing which come out in the periphery is less intense and it kind of more spaced out. ನೋಡಿದ್ದ ಈ ಸತಿ ದೀಪಾವಳಿ ಬರುತ್ತಲ್ಲ, ಒಂದು ಫ್ಲವರ್ ಪಾಟ್ ಹೊಡಿ ನೋಡು ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ. ಮಧ್ಯದ ಜೆಟ್ಟು ಮೇಲಕ್ಕೆ ಹೋಗುತ್ತೆ, ಕರೆಕ್ಟಾ? ಬಟ್ ಮಧ್ಯದ ಜೆಟ್ಟು ಇಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಹೋಗ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಏನಂತ ಅನ್ಸುತ್ತೆ, ಎಲ್ಲ ಒಟ್ಟಿಗೆ ಹೋಗ್ತಿದೆ ಅಂತ ಅನ್ಸುತ್ತೆ, ಲೈಕ್ ಕಂಟಿನ್ಯೂಸ್ ಸ್ಟ್ರೀಮ್ ಅಂತ ಅನ್ಸುತ್ತೆ. ಬಟ್ ಈವನ್ ದ ಸೆಂಟರ್ ಥಿಂಗ್ ಕನ್ಸಿಸ್ಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಕಾನ್ಸಂಟ್ರೇಟೆಡ್ ಪವರ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಲಾಟ್ ಆಫ್ ದೀಸ್ ಸ್ಪಾರ್ಕ್ಸ್. ಎಲ್ಲ ಒಟ್ಟಿಗೆ ಇರುತ್ತೆ ಸ್ಪಾರ್ಕ್. ದಟ್ಸ್ ವೈ ಇಟ್ ಅಪಿಯರ್ಸ್ ಕಂಟಿನ್ಯೂಸ್. ಇಟ್ಸ್ ನಾಟ್ ಕಂಟಿನ್ಯೂಸ್. ಫ್ಲವರ್ ಪಾರ್ಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಾಗಿದೆ, ಎವ್ರಿ ಪಾರ್ಟಿಕಲ್ ಇಸ್ ಎ ಸ್ಪಾರ್ಕ್. ಇಗ್ನೈಟಬಲ್ ಪಾರ್ಟಿಕಲ್ ಏನು ಹಾಕಿರ್ತಾರಲ್ಲ, ಎವ್ರಿ ಇಗ್ನೈಟಬಲ್ ಪಾರ್ಟಿಕಲ್ ಇಸ್ ಎ ಸ್ಪಾರ್ಕ್. ಸೊ ವೆನ್ ಇಟ್ ಗಶಸ್ ಔಟ್, it gushes out in very strong manner, especially in the center. But by the time it comes to the peripheral, it gushes out slowly. The power is not there. So that power which is coming out in the center is full of spark, multiple sparks arranged very closely to one another. When you look at this gush of light coming to the surface, ಮೇಲ್ಗಡೆ ನೋಡಿದಾಗ ಅಲ್ಲಿ you can see the different sparks even in the center. Correct? Now that each spark is like the cosmos, one Brahmanda. One spark is one Brahmanda. Same. Now to come again to the point, the one cell, the egg-like thing described above, is the master of one world. ಒಂದು ಎಗ್ಗಿಗೆ ಮಾಸ್ಟರ್ ಆಫ್ ಒನ್ ವರ್ಲ್ಡ್, ಅದು ಇಡೀ ಬ್ರಹ್ಮಾಂಡ ಒಂದದು, ಆಯ್ತಾ? ಗಿವಿಂಗ್ ಲೈಫ್ ಟು ದಟ್ ಪಾರ್ಟ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಯೂನಿವರ್ಸ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಕಂಟ್ರೋಲಿಂಗ್ ಇಟ್. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಆ ಸ್ಪಾರ್ಕ್ ಅಥವಾ ಪವರ್ ಏನಿದೆಯಲ್ಲ, ಪವರ್ ಆರ್ ಎನರ್ಜಿ, that concentrated essence of power or energy, gives rise to one world, one cosmos. And the power contained in that cosmos feeds all the things that manifest within that cosmos. ಸರಿ, ಈಗ ನಿನಗೆ ಆಫೀಸ್ನಿಂದ ಒಂದಿಷ್ಟು ಸಂಬಳ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ಆ ಸಂಬಳ ಬರೋದ್ರಲ್ಲಿ ನೀನು ಇಡೀ ನಿನ್ನ ಫ್ಯಾಮಿಲಿ ಮೇಂಟೈನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀಯ. ಕರೆಕ್ಟಾ? ಅದೇ ಥರನೇ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಸ್ಪಾರ್ಕಲ್ಲಿ ದಟ್ ಒನ್ ಕಾನ್ಸಂಟ್ರೇಟೆಡ್ ಎಸೆನ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಪವರ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಎನರ್ಜಿ ಇದೆಯಲ್ಲ, ಅದ್ರ ಒಳಗಡೆ ಏನೇನೆಲ್ಲ ಜಗತ್ತು ಸೃಷ್ಟಿ ಆಗುತ್ತೋ ಅದು ಹಾಟ್ ಆಗಿದೆ, ಇವಾಗ ಕೂಲ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಕೂಲ್ ಆದಾಗ ಒಳಗಡೆ ಜಗತ್ತು ಕ್ರಿಯೇಟ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ದ ವರ್ಲ್ಡ್. ಅದು ಕೂಲ್ ಆದಾಗ ವಾಟ್ ಎವರ್ ಎನರ್ಜಿ ಆರ್ ಕಾನ್ಸಂಟ್ರೇಟೆಡ್ ಪವರ್ ಇಸ್ ದೇರ್ ಎಸೆನ್ಸ್, ದಟ್ ಫೀಡ್ಸ್ ದಟ್ ವರ್ಲ್ಡ್, ಆಲ್ ದ ಕ್ರಿಯೇಷನ್ಸ್ ಇನ್ ದಟ್ ವರ್ಲ್ಡ್. ದಟ್ ಮೇಕ್ ಸೆನ್ಸ್? ಅರ್ಥ ಆಯ್ತಾ ಇದು? ಈಗ ನಾವು there are many worlds in the universe as there are cells, egg-like things. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ every cell or every egg is a cosmos, is a brahmanda. Every spark is a brahmanda. If a yogi utilizes the power which these cells contain by splitting the energy it is composed of, people may forget the atom bomb. ಯಾಕೆಂದ್ರೆ ಇದು ಒರಿಜಿನಲ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಸೆಂಟರ್ ಇಂದ ಬಂದಿರೋದು. ಆ ಎಗ್ ಲೈಕ್ ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್ ಸೆಂಟರ್ ಇಂದ ಬರ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ಆ ಒಂದೊಂದು ಎಗ್ಗು ಕೂಡ ಗಿವ್ಸ್ ರೈಸ್ ಟು ಒನ್ ವರ್ಲ್ಡ್, ಒನ್ ಯೂನಿವರ್ಸ್. ದಟ್ ಮೀನ್ಸ್ ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ನಥಿಂಗ್ ಬಟ್ ಈಚ್ ಎಗ್ ಈಸ್ ಕಾನ್ಸಂಟ್ರೇಟೆಡ್ ಫಾರ್ಮ್ ಆಫ್ ಪವರ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಎನರ್ಜಿ. Now if somebody, a yogi can split that power which is there in that egg. If you can split that power, then atom bomb is nothing in front of that power. Now, but according to the rules of the Arjuna had the capacity of splitting this energy into parts and could utilize it at the time to create havoc. ಇದನ್ನೇ ಬ್ರಹ್ಮಾಸ್ತ್ರ ಅಂತ ಕರೀತಾ ಇದ್ದಿದ್ದು. ಬ್ರಹ್ಮಾಸ್ತ್ರ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಆ ಬ್ರಹ್ಮಾಂಡ ಸೃಷ್ಟಿ ಆಯ್ತಲ್ಲ, ಆ ಸೃಷ್ಟಿಯಾದಂತ ಪವರ್ ಇದೆಯಲ್ಲ, ಆ ಪವರ್ನ ಸ್ಪ್ಲಿಟ್ ಮಾಡೋದು. ಸೊ ವೆನ್ ಯು ಸ್ಪ್ಲಿಟ್ ದಟ್ ಪವರ್ ಅಲ್ಲ, ಎಂಟೈರ್ ಕ್ರಿಯೇಷನ್ ಗೋಸ್ ಫಾರ್ ಎ ಟಾಸ್. ನಾಟ್ ಜಸ್ಟ್ ಎಂಟೈರ್, ನಾವಿಲ್ಲಿ ಆಟಮ್ ಬಾಂಬ್ ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡು ಆಟ ಆಡ್ತೀವಲ್ಲ, ನಿನ್ ಸಿಟಿಗೆ ಹಾಕ್ಬಿಡ್ತೀನಿ, ನನ್ನ ಸಿಟಿಗೆ ಹಾಕ್ಬಿಡ್ತೀನಿ ಅಂತ, ಅದಲ್ಲ. ಎಂಟೈರ್ ಕ್ರಿಯೇಷನ್ ವಿಲ್ ಗೋ, because entire creation is based on that power which is coming from the latent motion, and that is the brahmanda. So Arjuna had that power. If you look at this episode of Arjuna and Ashwatthama fighting, both of them actually leave the Brahmastra. And Ashwatthama doesn't know how to recall the Brahmastra. If the rule is that if two Brahmastras collide, the entire creation goes for a toss. Because the entire creation is based on the power that is coming in the Brahmanda. And where is the power coming from? From the central motion, from the latent motion in the center, the power. Every Brahmanda is nothing but the power of the latent motion, and it contains the power. That is what maintains the Brahmanda. So in other words, if somebody were to ask you, how is that all the suns, the planets, everything is in its place, it's not falling down, although we see space everywhere around. What maintains the positions of the stars, the sun, the moon, everything in its place is this power. This power holds it everywhere. It's like a static force. It holds everything in its place. Now, Arjuna had the power to split that power. So if that power is split, everything that is a derivation of that particular power, all the worlds in this Brahmanda are derivation of that power only. Modifications of that power. Now if I destroy that power, everything which is down the lane will also be destroyed. Does it make sense? No. But according to the rules of the war current at that time, none could use a weapon in which he was not resistible. So Arjuna did not make use of it. This was revealed by Bhishma Pitamaha to Duryodhan when the later had consultation with him regarding the impending war at Kurukshetra. But still Ashwatthama uses it. So when Ashwatthama also leaves Brahmastra, Arjuna is forced to leave Brahmastra because there is no other way. There is no other counter to Brahmastra. With Narayanastra, the counter to it is that you have to bow to it. You have to surrender. Then Narayanastra is not going to do anything to you. But Brahmastra is not like that. You cannot bow to Brahmastra and it will go back. It will do what it is supposed to do. The only antidote for Narayana Astra is to bow in reverence, lie down. Once, I think Ashwatthama himself leaves Narayana Astra on Pandavas during the Kurukshetra war. And Krishna says everybody to bow down. There is no other antidote to this. Bhima is very egoistic. I will face it. He'll stand up. Then Krishna pulls him down, saying that there is no otherwise your astra is not going to touch anything, it's not going to do anything, you will be destroyed by the Narayana Astra. Anybody who opposes the Narayana Astra is destroyed. So Krishna pulls him down and makes him lie. Then the effect of the Narayana Astra passes. It's almost like it comes and inspects. If somebody is standing or opposing it, it will destroy it. If everybody is going to it, it will just go away without harming anyone. That's the effect of the Narayana Astra. Pashupatastra, you know, Arjuna used the Pashupatastra in the war. So Pashupatastra is the highest weapon of Shiva. The Narayana Astra is the highest weapon of Narayana. And Brahmastra is the highest weapon of Brahma. So the entire cosmos is dependent on Brahma's power. That's why it's called as Brahmanda. Every Brahmanda has one Brahma in charge of it. Now don't assume that Brahmanda will be in charge by Brahma only. It can be any combination. A Brahmanda can be in charge or look after by Shiva, and then the Brahma might be maintained and Narayana might be destroyed. Any combinations are possible. Normally, we think that Brahma is the creator. Vishnu is the maintainer, Shiva is the destroyer. This is what we look at it as. But any combinations is possible. And once Krishna is visited by Brahma, the current Brahmanda, and Brahma comes and goes and tells the servant at the door, go and tell Krishna that Brahma has come. So he is made to wait for some period of time, and then after some period of time, Brahma goes in. Then when he goes and enters the hall, he sees that there are so many Brahmas. Before he goes into the hall, he is actually angry that he was made to wait. Then once he enters the hall, he sees so many Brahmas. Each one with n number of heads. Some are with 2 heads, some are with 3 heads, some are with 4, 10, 20, 100. Then this Brahma goes and introduces himself to Krishna and says, I am Brahma. Then the first question Krishna asks is, you are Brahma, which Brahmanda? First you tell me that. Then Brahma says, you don't know that. See, he says, all the people around here are Brahmas only. Each Brahma has so many heads. Each head represents the number of yugas that each cycle will have. So if you have 4 heads, that means you have 4 yugas in that Brahma cycle. If you have 3 heads, you will have 3 yugas. If you have 100 heads, you will have 100 yugas. Now you should tell me which Brahmanda are you coming from. Then after that, Brahma is perplexed. He thought he is only Brahma. Then he explained to him why he came, and then he gets the solution, and then he learns a lesson and goes. So Krishna is at that realm. Now Babaji is describing from that realm now. Now if somebody were to ask you, how many fire sparks did you get in a flower pot? One flower pot. Can you tell a number? You can just say a number. That is all you can say. How many worlds are created in one Brahmanda? N number. You cannot say this many, that many. N number of worlds are created in one Brahmanda. So every spark gives rise to one Brahmanda. Just like we have trillions of cells in our system, every Brahmanda has trillions of worlds in it. One Brahmanda is what is called as one universe, in which there are so many worlds. And now, like scientists are also talking about multiverse. This is what the example of Krishna and Brahma I gave you. There is multiples. How many minds are there? How many universes are there? Infinite universes are there. That is the message that you read in Daji's Bandara message. Infinite of infinite. So what is going to happen? You continuously evolve and evolve and evolve. There's no end to it. This is what is described in the Bhagavata Purana also. If you look at ISKCON's picture of Krishna, Krishna is just lying in the cosmos like this, and Brahmandas are just coming out of him all the time. Each Brahmanda is like one small thing, one small egg-like thing coming out of him. That's what is shown. Now, the center is shown as Vishnu. From him, there is a latent motion. From the latent motion, all these egg-like structures are coming out. That is what is happening. That is ಇಲ್ಲ ವಿಷ್ಣು ನಾಭಿಯಿಂದ ಬರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥದ್ದು ಒಬ್ಬ ಬ್ರಹ್ಮ ಅಷ್ಟೇ. ಒಂದು ಬ್ರಹ್ಮಾಂಡಕ್ಕೆ ಒಬ್ಬ ಇನ್ಚಾರ್ಜ್ ಇರ್ತಾನೆ ವಿಷ್ಣು. ಆ ವಿಷ್ಣು ನಾಭಿಯಿಂದ ಒಬ್ಬ ಬ್ರಹ್ಮ ಬರ್ತಾನೆ ಟು ಬಿ ಇನ್ಚಾರ್ಜ್ ಆಫ್ ದಟ್ ಬ್ರಹ್ಮಾಂಡ. ಸರಿನಾ? ಆ ತರ 3 ಲೆವೆಲ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ವಿಷ್ಣು ಇದ್ದಾನೆ. ವೈಕುಂಠದಲ್ಲಿ ಇರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಒಬ್ಬ ವಿಷ್ಣು, ಹಿ ಇಸ್ ದ ಕೇರ್ ಟೇಕರ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಕ್ರಿಯೇಷನ್. ಸರಿನಾ? ಅವನಿಗಿಂತ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಮೇಲ್ಗಡೆ ಇರೋನು ಇವನು ವೈಕುಂಠಶಾಹಿ ವಿಷ್ಣು, ಕೆಳಗಡೆ ಇರೋ ಲೋಯೆಸ್ಟ್ ಫೆಲೋ. ಆಯ್ತಾ? ಅದಕ್ಕಿಂತ ಮೇಲ್ಗಡೆ ಹೋಯ್ತು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಗರ್ಭೋದಕಶಾಹಿ ವಿಷ್ಣು. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಯಾರ ಗರ್ಭದಿಂದ ಬ್ರಹ್ಮ ಬರ್ತಾನೋ ಆ ವಿಷ್ಣು, ಅವನು ಗರ್ಭೋದಕಶಾಹಿ. ಇವನು ವೈಕುಂಠಶಾಹಿ, ಅವನು ಗರ್ಭೋದಕಶಾಹಿ ವಿಷ್ಣು. ಪ್ರತಿಯೊಂದು ಬ್ರಹ್ಮಾಂಡಕ್ಕೂ ಒಬ್ಬ, ಪ್ರತಿಯೊಂದು ವರ್ಲ್ಡ್ಗೂ ಕೂಡ ಒಬ್ಬ ವೈಕುಂಠಶಾಹಿ ವಿಷ್ಣು ಇದ್ದಾನೆ ಮೇಂಟೈನ್ ಮಾಡಲಿಕ್ಕೆ. ಪ್ರತಿಯೊಂದು ಬ್ರಹ್ಮಾಂಡಕ್ಕೂ ಒಬ್ಬ ವಿಷ್ಣು ಇದ್ದಾನೆ, ಅವನು ವೈಕುಂಠಶಾಹಿ, ಇವನು ಯಾರು ಗರ್ಭೋದಕಶಾಹಿ ವಿಷ್ಣು. ಯಾಕೆಂದ್ರೆ ಪ್ರತಿಯೊಬ್ಬ ಒಂದು ಯೂನಿವರ್ಸ್ಗೂ ಬ್ರಹ್ಮಾಂಡಕ್ಕೂ ಒಬ್ಬ ಬ್ರಹ್ಮ ಇರ್ಬೇಕು ಇನ್ಚಾರ್ಜ್. ಆ ಬ್ರಹ್ಮನ್ ಇನ್ಚಾರ್ಜ್ ಮಾಡಿದ ಆ ಬ್ರಹ್ಮನ ಎಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಬರ್ತಾನೆ ಆ ಬ್ರಹ್ಮ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ವಿಷ್ಣುವಿನ ಹೊಕ್ಕಳಿಂದ ಬರ್ತಾನೆ. ಸೊ ಅವನು ಇನ್ಚಾರ್ಜ್. ಇದು ಗರ್ಭೋದಕಶಾಹಿ ವಿಷ್ಣು. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಬ್ರಹ್ಮ ವಿಷ್ಣುವಿನ ಗರ್ಭದಿಂದ ಬಂದ ಅಂತ. ಆದ್ರೆ ಒಂದು ಬ್ರಹ್ಮಾಂಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಹಲವಾರು ಪ್ರಪಂಚ ಇದೆ. ಒಂದೊಂದು ಪ್ರಪಂಚಕ್ಕೂ ಒಬ್ಬ ವಿಷ್ಣು ಇನ್ಚಾರ್ಜ್ ಇದ್ದಾನೆ, ಅವನು ವೈಕುಂಠಶಾಹಿ ವಿಷ್ಣು. ಇದು ಅರ್ಥ ಆಗ್ತಿದೆಯಾ? ಒಂದು ಯೂನಿವರ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ, ಒಂದು ಬ್ರಹ್ಮಾಂಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಹಲವಾರು ವಿಶ್ವಗಳಿದೆ. ಒಂದೊಂದು ವಿಶ್ವಕ್ಕೂ ಒಬ್ಬೊಬ್ಬ ವಿಷ್ಣು ಇನ್ಚಾರ್ಜ್ ಇದ್ದಾನೆ, ಮೇಂಟೈನ್. ಆ ವಿಷ್ಣುನ ನಾವು ವೈಕುಂಠಶಾಹಿ ವಿಷ್ಣು ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ. ಜನ ಈಗ ವೈಕುಂಠಕ್ಕೆ ಹೋಗ್ತೀವಿ ವೈಕುಂಠಕ್ಕೆ ಹೋಗ್ತೀವಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರಲ್ಲ, ಅದು ವೈಕುಂಠಶಾಹಿ ವಿಷ್ಣು. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಅವನಿಗೂ ನಮ್ಮ ಮನುಷ್ಯ ತರನೇ ಅವನಿಗೊಂದು ಜಾಗ ಅಂತ ಕೊಟ್ಟು ಅದಕ್ಕೊಂದು 7 ಬಾಗಿಲು ಇಟ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು 7 ಬಾಗಿಲು ತೆಕ್ಕೊಡುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ ತೋರಿಸ್ತಾರೆ ಸಿನಿಮಾದಲ್ಲಿ. ನೋಡಿದ್ಯಾ? ಈಸ್ ಲೈಕ್ ವೆರಿ ಕ್ಲೋಸ್ ಟು ಅರ್ತ್, ವೆರಿ ಕ್ಲೋಸ್ ಟು ಅಸ್ ಓನ್ಲಿ. ವೈಕುಂಠಶಾಹಿ ವಿಷ್ಣು ನಮ್ಮ ಪಕ್ಕದಲ್ಲೇ ಇದ್ದಾನೆ. ಏನಂದ್ರೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಮನೆಗೆಲ್ಲ ಒಂದು ಬಾಗಿಲು ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ಅವನು ಏನು ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದಾನೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ, ಟ್ರೆಷರ್ 7 ಬಾಗಿಲು ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದಾನೆ, ಯಾರು ಒಳಗಡೆ ಬರ್ಬಾರ್ದು. ಆಯ್ತು. ಅವನು ಕ್ಷೀರಸಾಗರದಲ್ಲಿ ಇರ್ತಾನೆ, ಕ್ಷೀರೋದಕ ಶಾಹಿ ವಿಷ್ಣು ಅಂತಾನು ಕರಿತೀವಿ. ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ ಕ್ಷೀರಸಾಗರದಲ್ಲಿ ಇರ್ತಾನೆ. ಕ್ಷೀರಸಾಗರ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಇಟ್ಸ್ ಆಲ್ಮೋಸ್ಟ್ ಲೈಕ್ ಮೆಟೀರಿಯಲ್ ಕ್ರಿಯೇಷನ್ ಅಲ್ಲ. ಮಿಲ್ಕ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಇಟ್ಸ್ ಲೈಕ್ ಜಸ್ಟ್ ಈಗ ನಮ್ಮಲ್ಲಿ ಹಾಲಿದೆ, ಅವನ ಹತ್ರನೂ ಹಾಲಿದೆ, ಏನಿರಲಿ. ಸೊ ಕ್ಷೀರಸಾಗರ, ಸೊ ಕ್ಷೀರಸಾಗರದಲ್ಲಿ ಇರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ವೈಕುಂಠಶಾಹಿ ವಿಷ್ಣು, ಅವನ ಲೋಯೆಸ್ಟ್ ಫೆಲೋ. ಈ ತರ ಇಷ್ಟೊಂದು ವಿಶ್ವಗಳಿಗೆ ಎಷ್ಟೊಂದು ಜನ ಇದಾರಪ್ಪ. ಈ ಯಾರು ನಮ್ಮ ವೈಕುಂಠಶಾಹಿ ವಿಷ್ಣು ಬೇಕಾದ ಜನ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅವ್ರಿಗೆಲ್ಲ ಒಬ್ಬ ಹೆಡ್ ಇರ್ತಾನೆ. ಯಾಕೆಂದ್ರೆ ಇವರೆಲ್ಲ ವಿಷ್ಣುಗಳು ಕೂಡ ಒಂದು ಬ್ರಹ್ಮಾಂಡದಲ್ಲೇ ಬರ್ತಾರೆ. ಆ ಬ್ರಹ್ಮಾಂಡ ನೋಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿಕ್ಕೆ ಒಬ್ಬ ವಿಷ್ಣು ಇರ್ತಾನೆ, ಆ ಇಡೀ ಬ್ರಹ್ಮಾಂಡ ನೋಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿಕ್ಕೆ. ಅವನ ಹೊಕ್ಕಳಿನಿಂದ ಬ್ರಹ್ಮ ಬರ್ತಾನೆ. ಅವನ್ನ ನಾವು ಗರ್ಭೋದಕಶಾಹಿ ವಿಷ್ಣು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಅವನ ಗರ್ಭದಿಂದ ಒಬ್ಬ ಬ್ರಹ್ಮ ಬರ್ತಾನೆ. ಆ ಬ್ರಹ್ಮ ಇಡೀ ವಿಶ್ವನ ಬ್ರಹ್ಮಾಂಡನ ಮೇಂಟೈನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾನೆ. ಆ ಬ್ರಹ್ಮಾಂಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಎಷ್ಟೊಂದು ಪ್ರಪಂಚ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ಆ ಒಂದೊಂದು ಪ್ರಪಂಚ ಮೇಂಟೈನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಒಬ್ಬೊಬ್ಬ ವಿಷ್ಣು ಇರ್ತಾನೆ. ಆಯ್ತಾ? ಎರಡಾಯ್ತಾ? ಸೊ ಗರ್ಭೋದಕಶಾಹಿ ವಿಷ್ಣು ಮತ್ತೆ ಇವನು ಯಾರಪ್ಪ, ವೈಕುಂಠಶಾಹಿ ವಿಷ್ಣು. ಸರಿ, ಈ ತರ ಇಷ್ಟೊಂದು ಎಗ್ ಇದೆ ಅಂತ ಓದಿದ್ವಲ್ಲ ಇವಾಗ. ಒಂದೊಂದು ಎಗ್, ಮಿಲಿಯನ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಎಗ್ಸ್ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅದನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ನೋಡ್ಕೊಳಕ್ಕೆ ಇನ್ನೊಬ್ಬ ವಿಷ್ಣು ಇದ್ದಾನೆ. ಅವನ್ನ ಶಯನೋದಕಶಾಹಿ ವಿಷ್ಣು ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ. ಆರಾಮ ಮಲ್ಕೊಂಡಿರ್ತಾನೆ. The thing that Gopal Krishna likes the most. What a nice thing. ಶಯನೋದಕಶಾಹಿ ವಿಷ್ಣು ಯಾವಾಗಲೂ ಮಲ್ಕೊಂಡಿರ್ತಾನೆ. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಬಾಬೂಜಿ ಸೆಂಟರ್ ಈಸ್ ಇನ್ಆಕ್ಟಿವ್ ಅಂತ ಬರ್ತೀವಿ. ಸೆಂಟ್ರ್ ಈಸ್ ಇನ್ಆಕ್ಟಿವ್ ಅಂತ ನಿದ್ದೆ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾನೆ ಯಾವಾಗ ಅಷ್ಟು ಆರಾಮಾಗಿ, ನೋ ಆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟಿ ವಾಟ್ಸ್ ಎವರ್. ಅವನು ಶಯನೋದಕಶಾಹಿ ವಿಷ್ಣು, ಮಲ್ಕೊಂಡಿರ್ತಾನೆ ಅವನು, ಅವನು ಹೈಯೆಸ್ಟ್. ಸೊ ಶಯನೋದಕಶಾಹಿ ವಿಷ್ಣು, ಗರ್ಭೋದಕಶಾಹಿ ವಿಷ್ಣು ಮತ್ತೆ ಕ್ಷೀರೋದಕಶಾಹಿ ವಿಷ್ಣು ಅಥವಾ ವೈಕುಂಠಶಾಹಿ ವಿಷ್ಣು, 3 ಜನ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಇದು ಭಾಗವತ ಪುರಾಣ ಪ್ರಕಾರ. ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಭಾಗವತ ಪುರಾಣ ಓದ್ ನೋಡ್ರಿ, ಹಂಗೆ ಇದೆ ಅಥವಾ ಏನೋ ಒಂಚೂರು ವ್ಯತ್ಯಾಸ ಮಾಡಿ ಹೇಳಿದೆ ನಾನು, ನೋಡ್ರಿ ಅದನ್ನು. 3 ಜನ ವಿಷ್ಣುಗಳು. ಈಗ ಯಾರಾದ್ರೂ ವಿಷ್ಣುನ ನಾನು ನಂಬ್ತೀನಿ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಯಾವ ವಿಷ್ಣು ನಂಬ್ತೀನಿ ಅಂತ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಕೇಳಬೇಕು ಅವ್ರು. ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ ತುಂಬಾ ಜನಕ್ಕೆ ಯಾವ ವಿಷ್ಣು ನಂಬ್ತೀನಿ ಅಂತ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ. ನಾನ್ ವಿಷ್ಣು ನಂಬ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದೀನಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರಪ್ಪ. ಸರಿ. And people have no clue which Vishnu are they actually trying to believe or depend on. ನೀವು ಯಾರು ಬಂದು ನಿಮಗೆ ಯಾರು ಮಿನಿಸ್ಟರ್ ನಂಬ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದೀನಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದಾಗ ಯಾವ ಮಿನಿಸ್ಟರ್ ಅಂತ ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ ಅವ್ರಿಗೂ. ನಾನಂತೂ ಮಿನಿಸ್ಟರ್ ನಂಬ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದೀನಪ್ಪ, ನನ್ನ ಜೀವನ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿರುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ. ಆ ಥರ ಇಟ್ಕತೆ. 8 ಗಂಟೆ ಆಗೋಯ್ತಪ್ಪ, ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನಿಲ್ಲಿಸೋಣ, ಯಾವುದು ಮೀಟಿಂಗ್ ಬೇರೆ ಇದೆ ಇಂಗ್ಲೀಷ್ ನೋಡ್ದು, ಸರಿನಾ? ಸೊ ಇದು ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ಲೈನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ವಿ ಜಸ್ಟ್ ವೆಂಟ್ ಇನ್ ಟು ಎ ಟೋಟ್ಲಿ ಡಿಫರೆಂಟ್ ರೆಲ್ಮ್ ಆಲ್ ಟುಗೆದರ್. ಆಯ್ತಾ? ಈಗ ಯಾರು ಏನಾದರೂ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ,